take away our environment, you take away our social structure, and we're gone. There's nothing there. So we are that network relation. So the more that you start to identify with yourself, not as Mike Stokes, the teacher who's trying to do a good job right here, but as a community of beings, in this room right now, as a community of humans, and the larger community. So the more I start to think about myself as that, I'm a point of perception and a point of action within a community, then the way I approach my goals is going to be very different than if I'm me, just doing my thing in the world. So from the point of a network of relationships, what's most important is what those relationships look like, how those relationships are working or not working. So that's point number one. You're a network of relationships and you're still a sponge. Point number two is, so if these two things are true, where do I now put my attention? So what I would say is, and this is what I'm hoping to convince you of too, or hopefully you're already, or some of you may already believe this, that primarily we're a social being, right? Primarily it's people that affect us, right? That's why we want romance. That's why who knows the second greatest fear?
Public speaking.
Death is number two. Public speaking is number one. Why is public speaking number one? Because we're social creatures. Because as we evolved, literally survival meant acceptance by the pack. Sorry, creationists. So for all of that time, in our human evolutionary state, we were in small bands. And those small bands were literally our survival. So it was hardwired up here to seek acceptance from that band. And it predates human and goes back to our primate ancestors, because their bands are their life. You're out of the band as a primate, you're out. You're gone. You're not surviving anymore. And you're certainly not thriving. So if you want to thrive, if you want to survive and thrive and be happy, you've got to focus on your social structure. It is the number one ecosystem that impacts you. So not from a standpoint of pure survival, like you've got to have water, air, and food, right? You can survive. But from a standpoint of what motivates you to change, to grow, to become, to expand, you have to have, like in, what's the hierarchy of needs? Is that Maslow or is that? Maslow's in the hierarchy of needs. You have to have that social structure fulfilling those basic needs. And each one of our social structures are going to be different, and each one of our social structures are going to have capacities that are developed and capacities that are not so developed. So a couple more examples, because I really want to drive this point home. Because there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of places that we could focus on this designing your ecosystem. We could focus on the world, we could focus on your house, we could focus on your mind, we could focus on a lot of things. But we're going to focus today on our social structure. Because from my studies, that's the most impactful place. That's the place where you're going to produce the biggest result. And this is a really interesting point. You can focus on mental work, and you can do mental work, and mental work is really critical and really good. But if you do mental work and you neglect your social ecosystem, you're paddling upstream hard. And it's going to be really hard. It's going to take a lot of effort. You might get there, but you're going to get there by sheer will of force. You're not going to get there by grace and ease and flowing in relationship. So that's why we're going to focus on our social structure. So a couple more examples. I've noticed this over the years as I've been thinking about this, that people of great, and especially creative genius, they run in packs. There's, what are the artists, John?
Picasso and Braque and Jasper Johns and Rauschenberg. Anyways.
Yeah, so let me just, a couple more. Emerson, Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Mark Twain, Nikola Tesla. For the surfers and outdoorsmen in the room, Yvon Chouinard and Douglas Tompkins. Those are Patagonia and North Face, respectively. They were buddies. Ernest Hemingway, Ezra Pound, Scott Fitzgerald, Gertrude Stein, and T.S. Eliot all hung out together. So it is by no way the only way to create something great in your life, but it sure works. and it sure's fun. I personally would rather have that type of structure in my life feeding my greatness than trying to power it out by myself. I mean, that's fine too. If you're into that sort of dynamic, that could be a good source of joy for you. I don't want to discount working by yourself. There's total goodness, there's total greatness in that too. But if you're trying to accomplish one thing through your mind space, and everything in your social ecosystem is trying to push you in the other direction, and you're not working on your social ecosystem, that's not very smart. Don't do that. Okay, so a couple other things. I really like these examples, and I'm just going to drive this point home so that hopefully you're going to go home and you're going to be like, I am going to get to work on my social ecosystem. The centenarians of Okinawa. So the three longest living places that they found on Earth are the centenarians of Okinawa, you could call them the centenarians of Ikaria in the Greek islands, and then I don't have much information on it, but there's also a tribe of mestizos in the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. So the common thread between those is a very powerful structure of social interaction. Those people hang out all the time. Every day. They go to lunch together, they have dinner together, they play dominoes together, they go to community centers together. All the time they hang out. So if your goal is to live to be 100 and happy and fulfilled, strong social structure. Nothing else is consistent with long life and health other than strong social structure and a purpose for life. So having in yourself, and that'll get to the next part of your social structure, is your role. Your role in your social structure is defining, articulating, knowing, embracing, saying, expressing your unique gift to the world, starting with the people around you. You have to have that to give if you want to live a fulfilled, dynamic life. So this is beyond just accomplishing your goal, but the more it's not really, it's connected.